So what are ICC profiles and why do we need them? Hello and welcome to this Fotospeed video with me, Tim Jones. Today what we're going to be doing is we are going to be looking at the basics. And part of a new series, I'm going to start looking at the basics and what we need to get in place to get great prints out of our printer. Now, the first one of these things we need to look at is the ICC profile and what actually it does and why we need it and why we should always look at getting a free custom profile from ourselves here at Fotospeed. Now, before we dive in and have a look at ICC profiles, please don't forget to subscribe. Just click that subscribe button in the bottom right and also stick around to the end of the video because I have a 15% voucher that will give you 15% off Fotospeed papers on photospeed.com. Also, to our US viewers out there, do not forget that we have a flat rate shipping fee to North America now of $9. You will be liable for any taxes and duty in your own state or province, so please bear that in mind when ordering. Okay, so without further ado, let's dive in and have a look at ICC profiles. Okay, so I always say that ICC profiles are the first kind of foundation of what we need to put in place to get some great prints out of our printer. When we're first starting out printing, an ICC profile is going to give us a lot of consistency and stop us being really frustrated because we've all been there, that we just desperately want to print one of our pictures and we click print and it comes out looking completely different from the screen. Now, this is what an ICC profile can give you. It can give you the consistency between screen and print, and that is kind of what it's there to do for us. Now, that's the theory anyway behind it, that it will give us a match between our screen and our printer. However, in practice, as we all know, it's a little bit of a grey area. There's a few things that can affect how the print is going to come out of the printer. We've got a lovely glossy screen and our printer is printing on a lovely matte paper. There is no way those two are going to match because we've got a glossy screen and a matte piece of paper coming out. Also, the biggest thing I get asked is about dark prints and things, and that's to do with the brightness of the screen, not so much to do with the colour and the profile. But if we get a good profile in place, then a lot of that guesswork of things will be taken away from us and it will stop us getting frustrated and hopefully print more. So what is an ICC profile? Well, basically, it's a bit of data that's saved in your computer that tells the printer how to print colour to a set of values that's already been predetermined. So what is actually saved in that file that's labelled ICC is the adjustments needed between what the standard colour is, for what a standardised version of colour is, and what is actually coming out of your printer or displayed on your screen. Now, the standardised version of colour is there from the International Colour Consortium, so the ICC, and that is where the name of an ICC profile comes from. The ICC goes back to 1993. It was started by around, I think it was about 8 companies who started it, and it's grown to about 52 members, I believe, at the start of this video. So there's a lot of members who have basically adopted the standardised version of colour, so the standardised version of colour that the ICC have set out. Now, in 1993, they set out to standardise colour for the digital age, because they all saw that the digital revolution was coming and it was going to happen. So they needed to think about that and to also put in place a standard version of colour that these devices could be calibrated to and profiled to. So they basically applied digital code to each of the colours and each of the gradients within that colour range. And then they had their standard version of colour. Because the problem with colour is because we all see colour slightly differently. So my blue could be different to your blue, and the green and things, and we all have a slight deficiency in a colour as well, no matter how big or small that deficiency could be. So we need that standardisation to be able to measure the colour and perform those adjustments that are needed. So the ICC basically created a colour range for us, something that we could compare against. And now with that, and it being adopted by the calibration software manufacturers like X-Rite and Datacolor, we can then create ICC profiles for all our papers and get great prints coming out of our printer. Now, the process of having a profile made is actually quite simple. We here at Fotospeed will do most of the process for you. All you'll need to do is print off one of these charts here. Now, this chart needs to be printed without any colour management being applied, because your printers, I think they're a little bit clever, and they have their own colour management built in. So they basically have what's called a generic profile built in, which is a profile that's made once on, say, a Pro 1000 I've got sat here, or any make of printer, and it will then be embedded in the printer, and then it will be used on that paper type. Now, the problem being is they only put their own make of papers into these printers. So if you're using Fotospeed papers, it won't be in there. But also every printer prints slightly differently. So there, I've got a Pro 1000 here, but there's another Pro 1000 in the office, and they print slightly differently. So I've got to have two sets of profiles for it. But if I create a profile on this printer and use it on the printer in the office, that profile becomes a generic, because it's not made on that printer in the office, that specific printer. So if you printed off a chart at home on your Pro 1000, say, if you have one, and sent it in to me, and I used it on this printer, that profile will become a generic. However, if then I emailed that profile back to you, it will become a custom profile because the chart is printed on your printer. I always say to people to think about a generic and custom profiles a little bit like a custom profile is like a suit made in Savile Row, and a generic profile is a suit bought off the peg. Fits quite well, but there will just be those little niggles that we need to just change. Now, the custom profiling service is a free service here at Fotospeed. So all it costs you is a sheet of paper, and we just need a chart printed off with no profile assigned and no color management. Don't panic though, I do have written instructions on how to do this and how to go through the process to print this chart and post it into me so I can create the profile. But once I receive the chart, a bit like this one, I will then scan it on a spectrophotometer. On the spectrophotometer, it will measure all the little squares going across here, and then it will scan them and then compare it to what the ICC say that colour output should be. So then what will happen is those adjustments are saved in the profile and in that little bit of computer code. So then when we use this paper, which is the NST Bright White, this one here, I can select that profile, and then hopefully the colour will display correctly or print correctly. And we should have a closer match between our screen and our printer. We're always going to have those little changes. However, hopefully we'll get a little bit of a closer match between the two. So what I wanted to do was print and show you the difference of what a custom profile can make, because we always recommend having custom profiles made. Like I said, it's a free service we offer. So let's have a look. And I'm going to use a generic profile on the Pro 1000 I've got here, and also use a custom profile and see the differences, and also why we should be using them, because it gives us less frustration and gives us consistent colour coming out of our printer as well. And that's a trick. The consistency of what is being printed on the page is also a big part of a custom profile. Okay, so let's have a look at some prints and we'll compare and see what difference the custom profile makes. Okay, so I've made a couple of prints One using a generic profile, which is made on the other Pro 1000 in the office, and my Pro 1000 here, sat on my desk. So the first thing I have noticed is there is a very slight difference between the two. Just means actually that these printers are pretty close, and you can just see how close a generic can get, to be honest, because I have had to look really hard actually to see a difference between the two. If I get them up the right way. Now the one on top here is from the custom profile and the one underneath is from the generic. Now what I would say, the first thing I do notice, I'll do some close-ups of these as well, is the pink areas in the top left here on this flower are slightly more, they're kind of a bit more intense on the custom profile. So the colour's a little bit more pronounced. Also the same in the green areas as well. It's just a little bit flatter on the generic profile. And that goes also for the blacks a little bit as well. And there's a little bit more detail with the custom profile. Just in the kind of the highlight areas of the yellow here, there's just a tiny little bit more in there. So again, the custom profile is just bringing these very subtle colours back into play a little bit and just bringing in a little bit more detail for us. But saying that, the generic profile would give a fantastic print. If you weren't comparing against anything, you'd think that was pretty good. I mean, they both pretty much match the screen. It's just the custom profile just gives that little bit of something else in there. So that's what a custom profile will do, and an ICC profile will help you to do, is give the best color your printer can produce. Although the generic gave a really great print, it wasn't the best the printer could produce, which is what the custom profile did for us. It really intensified those colors. It gave us more detail in the highlights and shadows and just brought everything together. So custom profiles, please use them. They are there. They're a free service we offer. They can also be used with black and white printing as well. So a really good custom profile, hopefully that I will make, will give you perfectly neutral black and white prints as well. I have done videos though looking at this and doing tests between the printer's own black and white mode and custom profiles. For me, and for what I found out, use the printer's black and white mode, to be honest, because for one thing, it's one less thing to think about. So we don't have to second guess ourselves and see if there's any color casts and things, to be honest. And annoyingly, the printer manufacturers do what they say in this case, that these modes actually do work and they do a great job. Be it Canon, Epson, HP, they really do work. So please just use that. But custom profiles will do an equally good job, but they will, in the extreme conditions, there will still be a little bit of colour in there. But please go back and have a look at my video when I compare these two, because it's quite interesting actually, and I was kind of a bit proved wrong really in that video, which I'll put my hands up to. But use a custom profile. It's a free service we offer and it's well worth doing. Now, at the start of the video, I promised a 15% discount code. So please use the discount code FSYouTube15. Now, this will give you 15% off Fotospeed papers on photospeed.com. And also for the US viewers, don't forget that flat rate shipping fee of $9 to North America. You will be liable for any taxes and import duties, etc. in your own state or province. So please just bear that in mind. Apart from that though, I hope that's been useful and given you a starting point if you are starting out in your printing journey on what ICC profiles can do for you, but also perhaps a little bit of a refresher on people that have been printing for a while and want to get a better print out of their printer. But please put your comments below and have an amazing week as always, and I will see you next Thursday. Bye bye.